we wanted to give the patients some insight into what happens after you leave from the egg retrieval. Who's going to take care of your eggs and how does that process work? It's so important to understand what happens in the lab. It's just as important as what has happened in the clinic up to that point. It's good to understand how the eggs go through the process of fertilization and embryo division and how they develop and grow. And we want them to understand from the lab how much time and care we put into every egg that comes into the lab. Whether we get 1 egg or 20 or 40, each one is taken care of like it's our own. So I think that makes a big difference, that we're there. Every patient we review, and we're a part of every person's care. We don't want to be so big that we lose that piece of it.
We want to take a patient to the retrieval at a point where the most number of follicles are in a mature range, because the goal is to get as many mature eggs as possible. Only a mature egg will fertilize, so that's why maturity is so important, and we're essentially using a patient's body to mature the eggs, and then we'll take them out at the appropriate point. So that's the first interaction with the lab, is at the egg retrieval. We'll be present to locate the eggs in the follicular fluid and then take them back to the lab where they'll be fertilized later on that first day. ICSI stands for intracytoplasmic sperm injection. It's the primary form of fertilization we do at our clinic. And what we're doing is actually inserting a single sperm into each mature egg. So when sperm and egg meet normally, it's a really complicated process. There's a lot of communication happening between the two, a lot of steps where things can go wrong. So ICSI bypasses all of that. We're just going to put that sperm directly into the egg, and then hopefully it will fertilize, and we expect it to. So ICSI will be performed the afternoon after your egg retrieval, and then the next morning, 16 to 19 hours after we've done ICSI, that's when we can tell if the eggs have fertilized. So it's a very controlled timing process. Once fertilization happens, the egg starts a little clock, and we have to check it at certain points in its development, and it's very closely timed. So that's part of our job, is to know when to do things to your embryos and keep you updated on how they're developing. 16 to 19 hours after we do ICSI, we'll be able to see the first signs of fertilization. We place the fertilized eggs in our incubators, which are essentially metal uteruses. So they're controlled temperature and humidity, and also the level of CO2 and oxygen to mimic the uterine environment. So that's the controlled environment that your embryos will live in for the next 5 to 6 days. When we look at the embryos on day 3, they'll be multi-cell embryos. We're going to count how many cells each embryo has and also assign them a grade. So on day 3, we'll give a report to the coordinators so they can let every patient know how their embryos are doing and what's going on moving forward. After day 3, the embryos are left in the incubator for 2 more days. So we'll look at them again on day 5. And on this day, the embryos have changed quite a bit. So now they should be what we call a blastocyst. So they've gone from approximately 8 cells to over 100 cells in those 2 days. It's a really big change. There's 2 components that we're looking for in the blastocysts. First is the inner cell mass. Second is the outer layer cells, which we call the trophectoderm. The inner cell mass is actually going to become the baby. The trophectoderm will develop into the placenta. So 2 really, really crucial parts of pregnancy, and we can already see the beginnings of them in the blastocysts. We do our embryo freezing on days 5 and day 6. That's when the blastocysts are forming, and we're able to grade them and freeze the high quality blastocysts for you. It's usually not until day 6 that we know finally how many embryos we have frozen and the cycle is done. For patients doing a fresh day 5 transfer, we'll choose the embryos on day 5 and also transfer them on day 5, and then freeze any additional high-quality blastocysts that form that day as well as on day 6.
Vitrification is essentially a flash freeze process of an embryo. We do it because we have great success rates with it. Essentially 99% of our embryos or oocytes survive the thaw process once they've been vitrified. Pacific Northwest Fertility has embraced vitrification, and this has really helped us with our success rates in IVF by equalizing doing transfers with fresh embryos versus frozen embryos.